Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fandom Post Radio Podcast. I am your host, Kate, and joining me this week is Kestrel.
Wait, why am I first?
You're first on my list this week. I don't know.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, because DJ is celibate now.
Oh.
Right. See, I had a whole, what?
That's a lot of pressure now, Kestrel. Can you handle that?
I had my mouth open. I was ready to say hi. And then someone else's name came out.
And I was ready to respond to DJ because I'm used to going right after him and be like, whoa, are you the real celibate?
Oh my god. I'm just gonna go first. Hey everybody, I'm DJ/Celibus, apparently.
Maybe you should change that back so DJ is first and then you have Syllabus after.
I'm not gonna change my name just because you want to read my name. No.
Okay then.
Kate, I love how you shook things up here. This is great.
It's alphabetical order. I don't know.
This is the most dramatic start we've ever had to a podcast.
Oh, I don't know.
And I'm sure it's the peak, so...
Joining me this week is Kane.
Hello.
And joining me this week is some guy named Syllabus. I don't know who that is.
I already said hi. Kestrel hasn't said hi yet.
Everyone knows who celibate is, Kate.
Apparently.
Oh my god.
Wait, do they?
He's kind of a big deal.
Oh my god, here we go.
The biggest deal.
Is this DJ's pen name?
Mildly.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. It's the name I used for the game I developed.
What game is that?
That game is Lessons in Love, which you can now download for PC and Mac. We're up to like 7 hours of gameplay. Our Patreon just broke like $550 a month in less than 2 months. So that's cool. Thanks everybody. I'm gonna stop talking about it now though because I'm just gonna recommend it.
I gotta get in on this porn writing business because man,
it's like barely porn.
Dude, I opened the page
that's
for
the
your
thing.
game.
It still is.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, there's definitely porn.
I definitely opened that.
It's there.
I opened that page for the thing, and I'm like, I'm gonna regret doing this, aren't I? And I saw penises. Therefore, there's sex scenes.
Penis.
Yeah, well, no, there was two scripts.
One penis used multiple times.
Yes, with no pubic hair.
Yeah, they don't really have that for male models in the game, which is a weird thing. But hey, some people keep it clean down there.
That was like, yeah. Speaking of lo-fi audio, it's like low detail models. Anime models.
Not really, but okay.
I mean,
how much work do I have to do to
Throw
get to
shade.
the porn parts?
To the porn parts?
Yeah, like how much work do I have to do? How much reading?
You'll naturally get there just by playing the game.
Yeah, but how much
There's
reading do I have to do?
Probably like 20 minutes worth.
Oh, okay. All right. That's not bad.
That's like to get to the first one, and the other ones are put in later.
Ah, very good. See, I want instant gratification. I don't have to work for it.
Well, if you want instant gratification, you should probably just watch porn.
Right.
Yeah, but then I haven't earned it. See, there's a thing. Here's the thing
with porn.
Here's the thing you don't understand.
Podcast, by the way.
So $550 a month?
It's like the same reason people read romance novels. It's like they like the build-up, the slow burn to when the cowboy takes off his shirt.
The big ones around here are Amish romance novels.
Oh,
that is not a thing.
It is definitely. I can assure you.
I've read an article about that once.
I can assure you that Amish romance novels are a thing, and they are weird.
I believe this.
They are weird, but people love them. Like,
I mean, the Amish do need love as well.
It's not written by Amish
it's not
people,
for them.
and it's not for them.
Yeah, it's not for them.
I mean, they can read it though. Like books aren't against the rules.
I'm gonna imagine they don't read those.
You don't know how many Amish people are in your phone book.
What?
It's a phone
None.
book.
You can't
Yeah,
check.
also that.
I can't remember the last time I've even opened a phone book.
There's one in my driveway right now that's been sitting there for like 3
You should
weeks. I don't know how
probably
I got
pick that
there.
up.
No, it's scary.
Well, you should probably pick it up and throw it away, or burn it.
Or learn how to rip it in half.
Burn it. It's soaked in rainwater by now. There's no way. I'm just gonna wait until it dissolves into
It's a
nothing.
slow burn.
Yes, so this is an anime podcast.
Oh, is it? I think we might have gained some of your following at the cost of anyone else who might listen to this show.
Hey, man.
I think we just
whatever
lost
we
that.
gotta do to bump up the numbers.
Numbers are numbers.
In these past 5 minutes, we have lost every other listener.
A W is a W.
People.
Mauricio's still here.
That's right. Just DJ's guys and Mauricio.
And Craig.
That's all we need.
And Craig.
And Craig.
Oh, wait, Craig is back. Okay.
I got him back.
He was gone.
Didn't you hear him?
I'm glad. I suppose I did.
Great. Now he's going to leave again after we're done. You insulted Craig.
Oh.
So has Kestrel said hi yet? Or have we not gotten to that part?
Hi, I'm Kestrel. I'm not famous.
Not yet.
Where am I? Okay, so yeah, anime.
Well, I think we should start with the news if there's any news as always.
Yeah, so it's been 3 weeks. So there's certainly some news. I just included 3 big highlights from the past 3 weeks that I thought were appropriate. The first of them was from just about 3 whole weeks ago, because the day after our last episode was released, there was an online anime convention called Anime Lockdown. And this was a pretty cool thing, because it was put together by, like, 2 guys who have no experience running a convention in any capacity, and they did it in, like, a month, and it went pretty well. They had some guest panels, they had some industry panels. The big climax at the end was the discotheque panel, which are always very exciting, even if you're me and not that into that many discotheque licenses. But it all went pretty well. So I have some of Discotheque's announcements from that. As usual, they announced a shitload of stuff. So one thing is the Detective Conan Episode 1 TV special, which is like a 25 year later remake of the origin of this series. And with that, they kind of implied that they would be licensing some more Detective Conan stuff. So probably, some other TV specials and movies, OVAs, probably not 1,000 episodes of TV series, but at least they've got that going, and it's all like, the real names for both the sub and the new dub. So that's neat. They announced they licensed Love Hina again.
Yeah.
The series Scried, which aired on Adult Swim like 10, 15 years ago, which is interesting because that was one of the many titles licensed by Sentai when Bandai went out of business many, many years ago that never went anywhere. And apparently it never went anywhere for so long that their license already expired without doing anything with it. So now Discotheque has it.
Wow.
So maybe more things like that will happen for the Sentai Bandai rescues that never actually got released. And then they also licensed Memories, which I don't know a whole lot about, but it seems to be a very coveted license, or they might have already had it, but they're licensing it for Blu-ray. And they're going to dub it, and they're going to do like they did with Giant Robo, where it has a shitload of extras on the Blu-ray. So that's very exciting for a lot of people. That is by the creator of Akira, Katsuhiro Otomo, and it is an anthology of 3 short films, and I believe one of them was kind of the first big anime work that Satoshi Kon worked on, along with Otomo.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention, not that I knew it was Satoshi Kon, but I was looking it up as you were talking about it, because I was like, oh, this looks cool. And then one of the pictures from the Google images, I was like, oh, that looks exactly like Satoshi Kon's like style and artwork. And it turns out it's because he helped work on it.
Yep.
So that's pretty dope. I'll have to check that out. I didn't know this was a thing. The only Katsuhiro Otomo stuff I was aware of was Akira and then Steam Boy.
Mm-hmm.
Which Steam Boy is pretty good. It's decent.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah.
But I didn't know about this thing at all.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of people are very excited about it, and if they give it the Giant Robo treatment, then it's probably worth picking up the Blu-ray for sure.
It has a really interesting art style in one of these shorts. It almost looks like propaganda art.
Right, yeah, I remember seeing that.
Cool.
And then And they also announced the rest of the Urusei Yatsura films. So they had the one really well-known one by Mamoru Oshii. He probably did more than one, but I feel like that was the one that really like had his stamp on it, like the big Oshii style that would be a major thing going forward. So they licensed the rest of them now.
How many are there?
I forget. I feel like there were 6. Something
Holy
like that.
shit.
There were quite a few, yeah. And then also just kind of going on that theme of anime lockdown, in like the few days following its conclusion, a ton of other people announced online conventions, like a lot of upcoming anime conventions that had their physical convention canceled, announced they were doing live ones, or sorry, online ones. And I think Anime Central already had theirs last weekend. Funimation also announced right after this that they would be doing their own online convention. I think it's the weekend that would have been AX, 4th of July weekend. So, yeah, they were definitely a big trendsetter, and I think a lot of people were watching to see how it panned out, and now the big boys are kind of jumping in and doing it official. But for such a little independent thing, it went pretty well.
Yeah, that sounds like it'd
Good
be a
for
really
them.
interesting experiment at the very least. Glad to hear it went well. How much does it cost to go to one of these online conventions? Are they charging stuff?
No,
I
these
hope
guys
not.
didn't charge anything. I don't know if anyone's going to charge anything.
They'll probably try.
Yes, I'm sure they'll try.
I know that they were very adamant about nothing costing anything. So, like, they set up a Discord for, like, dealers to sell stuff, Artist Alley, that kind of stuff.
What?
They might...
That's sweet.
Yeah, they made, like, a specific channel for each dealer and artist. What they didn't like...
So cool.
Yeah, no, it was a really good idea. And they didn't charge them anything for...
Oh, I
setting
wonder
them
if
up
my
or anything.
favorite anime guy was there.
I feel like a lot of people were talking about your favorite anime guy.
Is it the guy? It's the guy that has 20% off all DVDs and manga all the time, and he knows the prices of everything and does the math in his head. He's a wizard.
Yeah, I think he was a big topic of conversation in the Discord.
He's like a tradition, like the water guy at Otakons of old.
Is he always sitting in a chair?
He is always sitting in a chair.
Oh, okay, I know exactly who you're talking
Everybody
about.
knows that guy. Everybody knows that guy. It's great. I've been meaning to volunteer for him one of these times where I'm too bored and I just want to work with anime guy. I'm sad if I don't find his stand. Like it's my friends who don't even buy anime at the cons. They don't really do that stuff. They're in for buying like merch and Artist Alley stuff. They don't really buy discs. They still love trying to find anime guy. I think it's because they treat it like a quiz show and they ask him prices on stuff and he can just rattle them off.
He just knows.
He just knows. It's weird.
Dude is
I
hella
mean, I
old
would buy
school.
from him from a Discord
For you,
channel.
anime guy. I have bought from him before.
Same. I think the last thing I did was I bought my Blu-ray for Terror in Resonance from him, which
I
was
got my
2 Otakons
copy
ago.
of Anthem of the Heart.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Shout
Well-
out to you, anime guy.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll try and someone will try and charge a price for one of these. I mean, Blizzard charges like $50 for their online BlizzCon thing.
Yeah, people were talking about that.
Yeah, which just gets you a live feed into the announcements. That's all it gets you.
Yeah.
Well, you get like bonuses for the games and stuff too. So people like exclusive items in the games they play.
That is super true. Do you guys remember back in the day when each store would have its own pre-order bonus?
Oh my god, I miss those days.
You
We
missed
actually had
that?
incentive
Oh,
to go
God.
to GameStop.
That
I loved
sucked.
it. I loved
Yeah,
it.
I mean,
I
that's
love
how...
small shit like that doesn't make any difference in the game, but like it's still exclusive. I love it.
I'm so glad that's not a thing in the U.S. anime market for the most part, because it is such a huge thing in the Japanese anime market.
Yep.
And
Oh,
if
God,
you're
Kestrel,
me,
you'd go
you have to have
bankrupt.
everything. Yeah, so
Yep.
you have to buy a copy from each retailer.
How they get you?
I know, and it works on a lot of people, and it would probably work on me if I imported more stuff.
At least you're aware.
Yeah.
You're a very like Japanese style otaku in the fact that you need to own everything of everything.
I guess
Because
that's
that's how they are.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
I remember
dangerous.
games like, especially for like the Batman Arkham games when Arkham City came out, it was like each store had its own Batman costume. So it's like if you pre-ordered from GameStop, you got a Batman Beyond costume. If you pre-ordered from Amazon, you got like Batman 1965.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, which fucking one are you going to buy the game from? Because you can't have them all.
Yeah, it's fun.
Ugh,
I like it.
yeah, I'm with
You guys
Kestrel.
are no fun.
Gotta have them all. All right. Anyway, so Urusei Yatsura was the last thing I talked about on that first announcement. And speaking of Rumiko Takahashi, you may remember that after Inuyasha ended, she hasn't done much that people have cared about. So
She had
it's not.
well, she had a reasonably long running garbage manga that nobody cared about, right?
That's exactly what I said.
that's
That no
what
one
I
cared
said.
about. She
A
has
what
had
manga?
I don't even know the name of it anymore.
Rinne, and now she's doing Mao, and nobody cares about either, and they never have. But everyone,
soon.
but everyone loved Inuyasha. So now Sunrise is making a sequel / spin-off anime to it, called Yasha Hime, Princess Half Demon. And they think it's going to air this fall, which seems ambitious to me.
I like just saw the first teaser for it the other day.
The other anime announcement is also supposed to air this fall. My next piece of news, which seems unlikely.
Optimistic.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, I like Inuyasha, and when it doesn't have to try to pad out time for the manga to catch up, it can be really good. So I'm hoping this is a good little sequel spin-off.
Who fucks Sesshomaru? I don't really want to know the answer to that. I have a good feeling I know who it is.
Everybody should.
Fangirl. Yeah. Every Inuyasha fangirl from the past 20 years.
I mean, I liked Sesshomaru when I was watching it too, still.
Also,
He's actually one of the only characters I truly remember that much about, because I haven't watched it since it was on, like, Toonami. I've never gone back and looked at it, but man, I remember Sesshomaru because I thought he was a cool, pretty badass boy.
Sure was.
and
Hell yeah.
I just like the implications that they were all deadbeat parents.
I mean, gotta be.
Yeah.
I
That's
like
like
Every
how-
anime
101.
hero grows up to be, a deadbeat parent. All right. So that's one anime that is supposedly coming out this fall. And then the other one, DJ had mentioned a few episodes ago that there was some teaser on the shared Angel Beats and Charlotte Twitter account, implying that there may be a new project in the works. And so I figured they did one original key anime in 2010, another one in 2015. It makes sense to do the next one in 2020, and that is exactly what it is. It is another one that follows the same format as those, an original anime by PA Works, Key, and Aniplex, written and composed by Jun Maeda, with character designs by Naga. So just like those first two, supposedly coming out fall 2020.
I have incredibly high hopes for this because there's a combination of all the things I love. I literally have a fucking banner designed by Naga sitting right next to me. It's an Angel Beats one. And I'm just praying that this is a good key anime and that they don't fuck it up like the last couple.
Yeah, I mean, the last couple that were actually adaptations of the visual novels have definitely been underwhelming at best. And
Even Charlotte, though, and that's
Yeah.
not adapted from anything. It's like, yo, that had so much potential, and then it just crashed and burned.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say, too, is that, going into Charlotte, you certainly expected the same level of quality as Angel Beats and didn't quite deliver, so I can't have that high of hopes for this, unfortunately.
I'm trying to stay positive. I'm really trying. but I keep thinking back to that last episode of Charlotte, and I'm just like, oh god.
I think Emily
Anything
tried
but
to
that.
watch Charlotte at one point and just couldn't get into it.
There are like 2 episodes in that series, because it's only one season, that I absolutely loved. But then the ending was horrible, and the rest of it was just okay. The characters were good. I think now is one of the best, or at least most interesting characters that Key has shown us. But even then, she's not really developed in any way. So she definitely had a lot of potential. Charlotte was just like such a missed opportunity in so many respects, because there's so many things that I loved, and then they weren't put together correctly. If you gave that show like one more season, I think it could have been a lot bigger, but they didn't want to do that. So here we are.
Yeah, I think both that and Angel Beats had premises that seemed like they really needed more than one core to work, but Angel Beats did a surprisingly good job with such little time.
Yeah. Great show.
Because I feel like Maeda is so used to writing such huge stories that being confined to one core just doesn't really work.
Like, he gets to, like, the part of it where, like, things are supposed to end in the anime, and he's like, wait a minute, what? We're this close to finishing?
Right.
I'm just happy he's healthy.
Same.
I have a bit of news I did not put on the doc, because...
Well, then you can't talk about it.
It's not that big. It was an update about live-action One Piece, live-action Cowboy Bebop. Cowboy Bebop is supposed to start filming in September. We'll see how all that goes. Live-action One Piece is supposed to begin casting in June.
Oh, God.
And they are going to be filming in South Africa. Also in September. So, yeah, we'll see how well that goes. And apparently the script for the first episode leaked out on the internet, like, many moons ago, but people just started realizing it now. And the writer wouldn't cop to whether it's real or not, which means it's probably real because they wouldn't say otherwise.
Or they're trying to build up hype, because that's exactly what they want you to think. Like, they're not commenting on it, so it's gotta be real, and then people talk about it.
Yeah,
they want that mystery.
They want to know whether people will like that script or not.
Yeah.
Yes, this is also true. I assume scripts get out very easily. I mean, even 20 years ago when the internet was, like, nascent, scripts were all the fuck over the place. Like, movies.
Like, mailing it to each other.
I mean, I read the script for Kill Bill, like, 5 years before that movie got made. Like, at one point. Because it was out there, and I was in film school, so I was like, cool.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, check out this. There was, like, a website that used to just gather up all the scripts floating around in the ether. And it was cool to look over them and see what changed between the first script and what actually gets shot. And that's the thing. Usually, scripts go through many iterations before they finally get to the end product of whatever.
Probably why they leak, because, like, they finish with it and then be like, this is going to be completely different by the time the movie's made, so just fucking throw it out there, see what happens.
Yeah, a lot of that happens, too.
I absolutely buy into I don't even know if it's a conspiracy theory at this point, that a lot of these leaks are by the companies and people themselves to judge early fan reaction and then gauge accordingly about how they should move forward.
Yeah. And that's one of the funny things is that it's like scripts are so prevalent for being on the internet, and there's such a precedence that when this shows up and, you know, this long ass document, if it's fake, someone went through an awful lot of trouble to correctly.
People have shit to do.
I know, but to correctly format a script, a shooting script, it's kind of funny. So a lot of people looked at it and said, yeah, this is probably real, and since I think people asked the creator and he didn't respond, it's probably real. And I read it, it's a really solid script.
So wait, is this Cowboy Bebop or One Piece?
One Piece.
Okay.
I mean, the script's solid, but how the hell it's gonna look is a whole other thing.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
But,
cool, script, fine, yeah, whatever. How's it gonna look?
Well, the funny thing is, it's like that first episode, it goes from... it does the very early spoilers for very early One Piece. Like, does the execution of Gold Roger up to the introduction of Zoro in the first episode. So I'm assuming it's an hour long.
Yeah, I think they said it would be hour-long episodes.
And there's not a whole hell of a lot of crazy supernatural bullshit, I think, that early on that would require a ton of special effects. So take that for what you will.
The rubber effects are going to look like, shitty Mr. Fantastic, whatever.
Yeah, I hope we've improved. The easy way to improve upon that shit is make the movements fast. And that's really all they have to do.
Motion blur everything.
Motion blur everything, yeah.
Yeah, motion blur everything, make movements very fast. And then you can just have, like, a hand gripping somebody, and then, like, motion blur city, and then, like, because the movements in One Piece are incredibly fast. So, I mean, it's when they slow that shit down that it looks incredibly stupid, so they just have to, make sure that they go as fast as it should look. But
do you think that they're gonna make the actress who plays Nami receive implants every single season?
Yes. Absolutely.
They have to, right?
They have to.
They could probably just CGI it.
Yeah, we're at that point.
Yeah. Until they're bigger than her entire head.
Yep.
I know that they won't do that, but I really want them to.
I mean, they have to CGI the whole bodies because they have to have that bizarre shape where their waist is like, 1 pixel.
They should just CGI the whole show. Actually, better yet, they should just draw it.
Whoa!
Have you
What
seen
a crazy idea.
Have you seen what Luffy looks like in the manga right now? He looks like a fucking door. He's like a perfect rectangle of like
He looks
muscle.
fucking weird through the entire series. I'm sure it's not just right now he looks weird.
I know, but like before he had kind of like a slimmer build, and now he just looks like a goddamn fucking door.
Why is his smile so weird?
Your smile's weird.
Oh, man.
Oh,
Roasted
sorry,
him.
Kestrel.
Woo!
Kestrel took great
Fucking
offense.
shit.
Kestrel bringing the heat.
Talking shit about my boy Luffy.
Yeah, what the hell?
I was hoping, Kate, you were going to say script's really solid, but they did rename him Larry.
No,
Oh my God,
I will admit the first thing I looked for was how they spelled Zoro's name. It is Zoro, by the way.
So the live-action Netflix series is going to be more accurate than the actual English translation of the manga.
Yeah, not Stephen Paul's fault.
I know.
Poor boy inherited that mess.
In the manga?
Zolo.
Zolo? Oh, it's one of
Zolo.
those where they fucking anglicize it in a weird way.
It's
Yeah,
a long story, and it's all 4Kids' fault.
yes.
I don't like that.
No one does, including the guy who has to literally write it every week.
Man, this guy
Is-
Usopp, his nose just keeps getting bigger and bigger like he's Pinocchio or something.
I mean, he keeps lying.
He's not, though. Everything he says comes true. He's just a prophet.
Yeah, but he doesn't know that.
He's a prophet. He's our
But,
our
Chopper is
Lord and
definitely-
Savior, Lord and Savior Usopp.
Chopper's definitely the one who's saved, or has changed the most, because he used to be, like, kind of an ugly little reindeer, and now he's just a perfect Sanrio mascot Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah, his face used to be round and now it's a block.
That's that thing's name? I had no idea.
That thing.
Yeah, well, what else am I gonna call it? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I'm with DJ on this. There are not many things that you could accurately identify in One Piece.
Yeah.
Chopper has horns. He's clearly some
Do
kind
you know
of.
how many animals have horns?
He has horns and hoofs.
A lot.
But that, although they do constantly refer to him as a Tanuki, other people. that don't know
See,
what the
there you
fuck he
go.
is,
There's
yeah.
confusion built into the series.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get back to talking about this on our main topic. Is that it? That's all we have for news, right?
That's all I have for news.
Cool. Our topic of discussion this week is not porn games and not this news topic, although One Piece will be coming up again because of the topic. The topic is the first episodes of anime and which ones do it right and which ones do it wrong in the regards of grabbing the audience. What it takes to have a first episode of an anime really grab you and drag you through the rest of the series.
And when it does that end up disappointing you later on in the series? Where's the balance at? How good does it need to be up front? How much does it need to improve? So kind of the reason I came to this idea was last night, Caitlin and I started watching Clannad. And Clannad After Story is one of my favorite anime of all time. And DJ's favorite. And so I got the new Clannad Collector's Edition, and of course you need to start with the first season. So we started watching that, and I remembered that, it's not that good starting off. And
It's
I can
not
see you.
Bad.
I mean, the first episode is pretty weak, and I can definitely see you. Huh?
I like it.
I mean, I like it too, but only because I know where it goes. And just like sitting there watching it with someone whose tastes I know and having introduced countless people to it and made them go through the process with the promise that it will be one of the greatest anime ever. I can definitely see how people could be confused starting out and being like, how does this get that great? Because it certainly doesn't make that case up front. And I realized that pretty much every series in my top 10 has a fairly weak start, certainly compared to where it goes from there. So I found that interesting that the series that I love the most don't start off that great for anime.
And I feel like that speaks to a lot of visual novel adaptations in general. Visual novels are normally rather weak starting because there's so much content. You're not going to hit people with ridiculous shit right off the bat. And Clannad feels a lot like a visual novel when you're first starting the anime. It's very slow building, but I think something that sort of started dragging me into that show was the music, because that's something that doesn't change from start to finish. And I like Tomoya as a protagonist. I think he makes his case for not being like a normal dude right off the bat. And so it's kind of just, it is generic when you're first starting, but it's not enough to push somebody away, I feel.
Yeah, it's just, I feel like if you have someone who, isn't finding this on their own and you're trying to get them into it based on your love of it, it can take a little more than that to convince them to follow through on it. And yeah, I agree about the music, but I mean, even that, it's not the really powerful stuff right at the beginning. At least not for the most part. It's some, kind of goofier tracks to fit with the themes of the show at that point. So pretty much everything about it, I feel like at the beginning, it's a little rough and hard to see where it goes. And since you mentioned visual novels in general, Steins Gate is another huge example of that for me, where to this day, how I determine whether or not to drop a show is, would I rate this show above or below the first episode of Steins Gate when I first saw it? Because I was not all that impressed by that series starting out, but it has, of course, been my second favorite anime of all time for almost a decade now. So
Steins Gate,
yeah.
I can't remember. Do you see the time machine in the first episode of that show?
Yes, but you don't necessarily know what it is. That's the thing, is a lot of the first episode is things that make no sense at the time.
Exactly. And I feel like that's a good tactic to use when creating a series that's adapted from something much longer. You have to throw something in there that people are going to be like, wait, what about that one thing? That'll keep them watching. Because Steins Gate, its only super interesting quality right off the bat is that there's a time machine that you know literally nothing about.
I mean, I would say the whole first half of the first episode and how that transitions into the rest of the series is just a huge mystery that they drop on you right at the beginning that doesn't fully play out until the very end of the series. And then if you go back and watch that first episode right after finishing the series, it is brilliant. But you don't get that if you don't know anything going in. So
World End did that too, to a much lesser extent. But there are a lot of shows that the first episodes means so much more if you've already finished the series. Your Lie in April, that's another one. It's just everything changes when you know how it ends. And I think that is another great quality to have for a show like that as well.
And one thing that is worth bringing up is that, like I mentioned, how pilots work with television shows over here means that your first episode is generally going to have huge hooks. It's going to try to convey what the series will be about for at least the first season. It's probably it's not going to have that same kind of format of like the slow burn and maybe some pieces that you have to wait for later in the season to really deliver on, because they need to sell this to the network or whoever from the first episode, so they need to have kind of a complete package in just the first episode, which is certainly not the case for anime, especially adapted from a complete product like a visual novel.
I know it's not anime related, but the first time I truly experienced this phenomenon was watching the show Firefly, because that pilot sucks.
Okay, did you watch the pilot or the first episode? Wait a minute, how old are you?
I am. I'm 28.
Okay, so you did not watch it when it aired.
No, I watched, what was it, like the hour and a half, or however long it was, like first episode.
This is funny because back in the day when Fox originally aired Firefly, they did not air the first episode as the first episode. They aired the fourth episode as the first episode.
How old is Firefly?
It's old.
Old enough that I had to stop and check myself and be like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
I feel like
I admit
not,
that they did that show real dirty. But
Yeah,
that pilot episode still sucks. Even my friends told me, like, we shouldn't have started you there. They're like, we should have just explained it and then just went right to episode 2, because it's just not a very good pilot at all.
It's 2002. That's not that old.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
that's
we would
18
have been
years.
10, so...
Anything... Yeah, I don't call things old if they're, like, from the 2000s.
How long is that going to keep up?
It will help me forever, because once I, like, start calling that old, everything else just falls to shit, and I realize that I'm dying faster than I think I am.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it kind of works for us because once that's old, we're old.
So
Yeah.
we'll be in like 2050.
This is a new show, guys.
We'll be in 2050 and somehow still talking to each other, and DJ will be like, the original Xbox is not that old.
It's not.
I feel that way about many things. Okay, history lesson for the youngins in the audience, like most of my co-hosts. Back in the day, about 20 years ago, Fox was notorious for greenlighting a lot of shows and canceling them within the first season.
R.I.P. pitch.
It left a wake of dead TV shows, some of which did not deserve to be canceled, many of which did not deserve to be canceled, I would say. But yeah, starting with like the Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., it was just a bloodbath for like 8 years. Even like shows by other creators that they had previously worked with, like Chris Carter and stuff, it was just a massacre. Everything that was even semi good or decent, it's like Fox did not know how to market shit, and it had weird expectations for shows that aired on Friday nights. It was bad. If your show was on a Friday night on Fox, it was going to get canceled.
Or if your show was Futurama and it just played on whatever day Fox felt like throwing it on the fucking TV.
Yeah, that was super weird too. I don't know why they treated that show like shit. Yeah, so Fox was notorious for being a network that would greenlight almost any weird genre show that if you put any of the shows on the air today, like on Netflix, they would be like huge hits. Well, maybe with like, modern day budgets and stuff. But like at the time, oh my god, so many good shows died because Fox just didn't know how to fucking deal with them. Oh, so many shows. So many shows.
Yeah, that was a weird part of television history. But yeah, this is a cool topic. So I'm looking forward to what everyone's opinions are. I just know the first time that I really experienced it was with Firefly in college. Because it didn't help that everyone hyped it up really, 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 really hard before I watched it too. So they're like, it's the greatest TV show ever made.
That's a problem I have.
Yeah, they're like, it's the
I like
greatest
to
TV
hype
show ever
stuff
made.
up.
Man, I do
Yeah.
that with everything.
Yeah, me too.
EJ, yeah, you do have several favorite characters of all time every season.
That's
I have
well.
several favorite characters of all time every episode.
I mean, specifically the greatest character ever written.
Yeah, ever. So,
Yeah, but go ahead.
So I was just gonna say, before we get started, I just was curious as to what everyone's Kester. You said what yours is, but does everybody have a limit that they put on, like a buffer? I guess, like the 3-episode buffer.
It's the 3-episode.
Yeah.
The 3-episode.
Everyone does
buffer.
that?
That's kind of
I feel
the
like
standard
that's,
for anime.
Yeah, that's like become the anime community thing. It's like, all right, 3 episodes. If it's not good by then, whatever. But
And to
I
the
feel
point
like
that studios have kind of like taken that into account to try to
Yeah.
sell you within the first 3 episodes.
it's and because of that, I feel like my limit has gotten even less, and I'll go do like a 2-episode or a 1-episode limit sometimes. Like there are shows that I'm okay with. This season, there's Princess Connect Redive, which first episode was fine. I maybe would have wanted to continue watching it if I watched 2 more episodes, but I dropped it after 1, and that's just a thing that I do now. I don't know if I'm just adamantly abstaining from what everyone else is doing because I'm fucking hipster or something, but it's my 3-episode limit is slowly turning into something less because I feel like the studios are picking up on it, like Kestrel said.
But I mean, that's kind of a reason to continue doing it, right? Because you don't really know what you're getting into until you watch the first 3 episodes.
But at the same time, there's like that subconscious thing in the back of my head where it's like, yo, if you don't keep watching this, you'll have more time to do other stuff.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
So
I think
I'm
it's
like, fuck it, 1 episode.
I think it's partially that, and also, I mean, you probably more than most people that I know of, at least in terms of anime, has a very like specific comfort zone. It seems like you have a kind of show that you like.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So I could see you pulling the plug more quickly on shows that don't fit that form. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not using it as a criticism.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you have what you like, and that's
Yeah.
what you like. And there's nothing wrong with that. So if something doesn't fucking it's not in your wheelhouse.
It's grab me. Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
it's not in your
gotta
wheelhouse.
do something that's gonna make me want to watch it. It can't just be like out of my comfort zone and normal for that sort of genre.
Yeah,
Like
I
a
applaud
mildly
that.
executed like action show or something. Even if it's like not bad, I'm not gonna be interested in it if they don't go above and beyond.
I applaud that. It's better than when I've read about the people who are on the opposite end of the spectrum where they'll keep watching because they feel like they should be watching it, even though they don't like it, or some people who watch it but sped up just so they can say that they watched it.
No,
Is
that's
that
not
a
watching
thing?
it.
That's not
Son
a
of a-
thing. People don't do that, do they?
No,
I
people-
wish people didn't do that.
Oh,
People
God.
do that.
They totally do it.
Yeah, people will watch a show on like 1.25x.
Ugh,
They still
Oh.
skip the opening.
disgusting. Of course.
Horrible.
Of course.
The worst people.
The absolute worst.
Yeah, I think mine's around 3 episodes as well for new shows. If it's an older show and like a longer one, then I give it more of a buffer. Like, if I'm watching something that has the length of like Legend of the Galactic Heroes, I feel like 3 episodes is enough because it's 120 episodes long. So
You're right. Yeah,
may
that's
not-
definitely.
yeah, it may not be able to do much in those 3 episodes because it stretches its story out over such a long period of time.
Yeah, and of course that is one of the series in my top 10 and one of the ones that I think starts out pretty weak compared to the material that you get later on. For the 3-episode thing, I've kind of been shifting over the years. I've also kind of figured out what I'm going to like ahead of time. So I use that to try to, save time not watching everything like I used to for at least an episode to 3. Now that we don't have any anime, I'll probably watch like everything that comes out next season because it'll probably be like 2 shows. And I used to do that in the early days of simulcasts when it was very feasible to just watch everything that was simulcasted.
Right.
But yeah, right now, if I start a series and it's like kind of below my threshold, I'll usually try to do like, if it's an F, drop after 1. If it's a D, after 2. If it's a C, after 3. Just to see if they can, build up and, improve enough to reach the level that I would want to invest the time on.
Now, is there any episode or any series that you watched past your 3-episode buffer and still weren't that impressed with that you wound up liking a lot by the end of the show? Because I have a few like that for me that I'll probably talk about, but I want to know if that's something that you've experienced yourself.
I mean, I think for, some of the shows that I love a lot now, it was just because they had been sold to me as such great series. So I invested more time than I would have normally. And some series that I have dropped after 3 episodes or less and then heard really great things about. And so I've gone back and just watched the entire series. And those have turned out really well. One thing that Kane reminded me of when he was talking about, watch it in this order. Another one of the series in my top 10, Gintama. That is, of course, a very long series. And the first 2 episodes of that are, especially the first episode, they're bad. And they don't need to exist at all. They're just like filler, I guess. They're kind of like a special that was put in the anime series ahead of the actual manga material. So that's one where I think, you can safely skip the first 2 episodes, as wrong as that feels to say. And even the first proper episode of that, episode 3, is still pretty weak. But at least if you start with that one and invest 3 episodes, then you can probably get some good material by the end of it. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever... I'm sure I have. I'm sure I've experienced that. I definitely know I've gone the opposite way and haven't enjoyed a show still, but so desperately wanted it to be good that I kept watching it.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time that it's over, I just kind of feel meh about it. Luckily, I haven't gone so far off the deep end where I don't like it, but it still ends up not really being all that great, but at least I didn't waste my time in my mind. I haven't had something that was holding on and then turned out to just be super duper bad in the end, except maybe Babylon. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely series that just absolutely tank at the end. I think probably my only real examples of just watching a series all the way through, even though it never gets good, are franchises that I'm very invested in, or creators that I'm very invested in, and I just really want to believe that it turns out good. So the Fate spinoff, Prisma Ilia, I watched 4 full seasons of that, even though for the first 3 it was not a good show at any point. And the first one was pretty bad.
Man. Hey man, don't be shit talking Prisma Ilia.
Uh-oh, here we go.
From my perspective. But at the time, that was the only Fate anime we had outside of the main adaptations of Fate Stay Night and Fate Zero. Now we have, one new one every month, so I don't need to hold on to that. But at the time, I was like, yeah, it's Fate. You gotta check it out.
It is the longest running Fate series.
I mean, that's not true. It has the most individual series for a single story, I guess. But it's still not as long.
All right, so where should we start then? Do you want to start at shows that did a pilot and maybe, the next episode so well, or do you want to start from the opposite spectrum, opposite end of the spectrum? Where do you think is a good place to go?
I want to interject that first of all, Kestrel, your audio is crackling like hell. Hopefully, it's just Discord. Probably isn't though. That's gonna be fun. And second, I only drop shows I like.
You have the weirdest watching habits of anyone I've ever met.
Well,
you really do.
That goes back to when I used to, back in the day, back when stuff was streaming, and I'd be like, I'll watch this show later on disc, and then I would stop watching it.
On disc.
And, but that is I just watch stuff because I'm just watching what I review anyway, so I'm in it from beginning to end, unless it's really, really terrible. And even then, I give it 6 episodes or something before I'm I can't handle this anymore.
That's another thing where I've kept with series a little longer than I would have sometimes because I'm reviewing them. in recent years, I've mostly just dropped them anyway. For the next few seasons, if we get very light loads, maybe I will see them through for everything I sign up for, just to see where they go. But yeah, generally, I don't even let that hold me to a show that isn't good. But I guess we kind of started with, series that turn out really great, but kind of have weak starts. And so we can go a little more into discussing some more examples of those from everyone and how you get people to watch them, how long it takes to really get them invested, and just how that process goes.
Neat. Did anyone have one that they felt especially passionate about that they wanted to talk about?
I wanted to
in
touch
respect to starting off well and then not ending as strong. I didn't fully understand what
the opposite way, starting off not
way.
well, ending very well.
Starting off not well, ending. Yes, Sound Euphonium. I thought that show was so boring for like 6 or 7 episodes.
That's like the concert band with the girls.
Yeah.
Right.
And
okay.
By the end of it, I was so invested. It was the quickest flop or the quickest flip I've ever had on anything, I think. It's weird because I went from despising it and not caring about anybody, and when you get to the last arc or the second to last arc, it's I was almost crying because of just how quickly things turned around and how I don't even know why I was so emotionally invested. I can't remember what happened, but there was one moment in that show where it just clicked and I was like, I want them to succeed.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one, because I feel like everyone loved that show from beginning to end, but I signed up to review that show. I reviewed the first 3 episodes, was not impressed, and dropped it until less than a year ago when I finally went through and watched the whole thing and loved it.
So good. The last arc of the the first season is amazing. And then the entire second season was good. So
yep.
Who made that show?
KyoAni.
That's what I thought, but I didn't want to sound like an idiot and be wrong.
Kumiko is one of my favorite protagonists. She's really funny.
I've been meaning. That's another one that's always been on my list of at least watch the pilot or 2, just because it's it's about a school band. That seems kind of fun. But I mean, it's on a list of a lot of. So what makes it rough in the beginning? Is it just kind of a lot of exposition, or
not even? It was just boring. I just didn't really care about anybody. But I feel like having to follow Kumiko through the whole thing and just realizing that she's just so fucking done with everything, it was fun. And so I started to like her a lot. And then you start to since you're pulling for her to do well, you pull for her friends to do well, and it just snowballs into I need you all to be happy. And then when they get sad, you get sad, and the music's so good. It's just a whole thing. The show changes.
Yeah, what would each of you say was if you could pinpoint it as best as you could, when it turned around?
Halfway through the first season, I'd say.
So what that would be 6 episodes?
6 or 7 episodes in, as soon as the second to last arc of the first season started.
Yeah, I think episode 8 was the first one where I was like, oh, this can be a really great show. That's the one with the festival and Kumiko and Reina climb up the mountain.
Yep, that was the moment when it gets really lesbian. That's when it turned around.
That was a really great episode, yeah.
Oh my god. I still have a gif of that saved somewhere. She touches her nose. Oh my god. That's a Yuri show. Nose. That is 100% Yuri show, and they won't call it that.
Does she boop
Tragedy.
Her nose?
She it's a sexual seductive boop where she starts at the top of her nose and drags her finger down. Yeah, she literally strokes her way down her nose, and then her finger drops off and
I've seen that gif
flicks
so
her
many
lip.
times.
Oh my god. Just kiss, please.
Strokes the nose and then just digs a finger up.
It was the
there.
most wholesome sexual tension I've ever experienced.
Yep.
I wouldn't have gotten that from from seeing like I don't know what you call them, the promo images of the show.
Yeah, you wouldn't think so. There's a
No,
lot.
not at all.
There's a lot of lesbian stuff going on in that series. I
Yeah,
completely forgot about it until right now.
This show is gayer than a lot, but I mean, a lot of cute girl shows are kind of about that subtext.
That's the best genre of Yuri. It's like the pseudo Yuri show where nothing happens, but like that they want to kiss each other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's fine as long as they don't backpedal on it at some point.
So yeah.
Queer baiting is the worst goddamn thing that.
No, it's the best goddamn thing.
No, it's
Give
bad.
me more of it.
They should just be like, at least acknowledge it at some point.
Oh, but it leaves so much to the fantasies.
I mean,
It is.
You could, leave stuff to the fantasies and still be like, no, we're actually like gay and in love.
Another series that I love that I just got on Blu-ray is Marisama Gamiteru, which is kind of like the perfect example of how you can get as close to possible at being explicitly Yuri.
Is it not?
Technically being there. So it's not for the most part, but like there's a big backstory episode that I just watched last night in the first season where one of the main characters, you see her backstory, and she is in a very explicitly romantic relationship with another girl. But she's really the only one who you can say is 100% a lesbian. The rest is just like very, very heavily implied.
I've always thought that was a Yuri show.
Yeah,
I've not watched it,
else
but
really like kisses or says that they're in love or
they should
are in a relationship. But like they go on dates. But it's just like a thing that you do at that school. You go on dates with each other, and you're all girls.
Interesting.
I love anime.
It's the best.
Now, Kane, I was curious. I do want to have like a full episode on the series when we finish up our rewatch of it in a few months, or a month and a half now. But I'm curious how the very beginning of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood struck you, because your reactions to that, based on whether it's your first exposure to the franchise, whether you've seen the first series, whether you've read the manga, will change drastically. So I'm curious what your perspective was.
First thing, it is so hard for me to just watch one episode now. Like, I kind of hate you.
You can watch it all. I'm fine with that. I just
agreeing to do it this way, but then I feel like I'm betraying the spirit of the experience. So I just watched
That's
one,
a sign that
especially
good.
Now that Bradley's back and he's my favorite, and I just want to go see him do Tom Selleck things.
He's certainly Tom Selleck.
I enjoyed it pretty much right away. I honestly don't remember exactly how it started. Just because it's been a while, but I recall like being hooked pretty much right in the beginning, but I think it's because I knew I had the benefit of the future of knowing that it's really, really good, and I've had several friends who've watched it. So there was that, and the concept to me is just really cool, period, which also helps me give a show more leeway if I haven't seen it before. Like, if the concept as I read it in like the little paragraph blurbs is something that I'm gelling with, I'll give it more rope. And this show had me like immediately with how they handle like alchemy and magic and shit. So yeah, I recall really enjoying it, like pretty much, so far beginning to end. There hasn't really been any point where I haven't liked it. We'll talk about it, like you said, later. There have been characters I wish would have more or less development as compared to the hype that I knew about them before watching it. But yeah, for the pilot and the first couple episodes after that, I thought it was really good.
Where are you guys up to on your rewatch of that, or watch of that?
Yo, Bradley's back, and you're gonna get in trouble.
It's it's nearing the end. It's approaching the climax. We've got half a core left or so. So
okay.
Yeah, I think we're at like episode 58.
Mhm.
So you're
Yeah, so
way
6
up in
episodes.
you're way up in shit hit the fan territory.
Oh
then.
yeah, it's been hit. It is now It's now in the process where it's spreading all over the walls.
Yes. The first episode of that, actually similar to Gintama, as I was mentioning, although still better than Gintama's first couple episodes, is also, despite the point of brotherhood, not in the manga. So that was kind of a weird situation. And then after that, it retread a lot of material that was just adapted 5 years prior, and that gave it a lot more attention at the time. So early episodes of that series definitely work better, I think, if you go in not having, just watched the first series 5 years or less prior, and maybe even not knowing it from the manga, because you don't have an expectation of a certain level of pacing or anything.
Yeah, I think definitely not having the experience of watching the first show or reading the manga helps, because it kind of, the first episode, if I remember, they're chasing after the freezing alchemist guy, so you get action like right away.
Mm-hmm.
So you get some cool action right away. You get the first like short joke for Ed, so you kind of get that part of his personality right there. And it introduces you to a lot of the characters and a lot of their quirks and stuff, while keeping you sort of in this action-y scene. And Bradley does some badass shit right off the bat too, which is great. So yeah, maybe if I would have had that knowledge of the original show and the manga, and having experienced both already, yeah, it'd feel like a retread of sorts. But since I had nothing, it was all really fresh. So yeah.
The first episode in particular, I think, since it's not in the manga and not in the other anime adaptation, I think that has kind of a different reaction for a lot of people. I think if you came from the manga and it was like, this is the adaptation that finally adapts the manga faithfully, and it starts off with something not in the manga, I can see how that could piss some people off.
That is also super true.
Yeah. How I came to it, having, of course, watched the first series but not read the manga at the time, it seemed to me like something that it also shouldn't have necessarily been doing to stand on its own, which was like, hey guys, you remember all these characters, all your favorites are back, yeah, let's have a big action montage with them. So I'm glad to hear that it does go over well with people, and I've introduced a lot of people to that series who have not seen the other one. So I'm glad that it's worked out well for people.
Yeah, I think it gets what am I trying to say here? I agree. It's kind of like with Spider-Man movies is what I thought of. It's like everyone's seen the whole like Uncle Ben thing over and over and over again. It's like I'm sure people who had read the manga and watched the original were like, we don't need to see Uncle Ben dying again. We get it. But for people who don't have that, Uncle Ben dying is brand new. And that's how it was for me. So, and I like shows that do that anyway. That whole just throw you in with not a lot of exposition, and then it kind of plays out as the series goes, rather than either heavy front loading or heavy back loading it. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I felt this was. It's like, here you go, here's some action, here are these characters, they're all cool, here's what they do, and we're just gonna go. We're just gonna start. They didn't spend a lot of time explaining this is how alchemy works. This is the map of the country. This is how it's laid out. This is how the military structure works. So I really enjoyed it. I don't know how many of my other friends groups have seen it. I think I only have one personal friend who has watched it.
When that series hit its 10th anniversary for like the beginning of it, I did a 10 years later article on it, and I spent a lot of time in there talking about kind of the struggle between not boring the people who just watched a lot of this material 5 years prior, and standing on its own for future generations who are going to come to it first as its own piece of entertainment. And it's definitely a struggle it had for coming out when it did. Even though it's my favorite anime of all time, it could have been even better probably if it didn't have kind of that expectation to live up to at the time.
Yeah, that could be rough. That can be super rough. Yeah, Emily had watched the original series but didn't watch Brotherhood. So she's been dropping in and out when she recognizes scenes or characters, and has kind of been giving me a running commentary from her memory about how this one is different from that one. For better or for worse, at least in her mind.
Well, everything's going to be very different after the first core of Brotherhood.
Yeah, it's not like she's been sitting down watching an episode. She'll just walk into the room and be like, oh, I remember when Mustang did this or did that. Oh, I didn't know that this happened, or this happened way before or way after where you're at now. Things like that. Yeah,
so I guess through these various conversations, I might have covered each of my favorite anime series that at least the first few.
That you got Clannad, you got Steins Gate, you got Full Metal Alchemist.
Yep.
Checking all the boxes.
Legend of Galactic Heroes.
That's a top 5?
Well, I said top 10. But
did you? Okay.
It is top 5. So yeah, that's my top 5 right there, those 5. And then also Gintama is the next series after that in my list. So yeah, that's a lot of my favorites that I feel all started, not necessarily all bad, like Gintama. Some of them are just kind of like on the cusp, like Clannad and Steins Gate. Some of them are pretty good, like Brotherhood, but certainly no indication of how great it's going to be, like some series are.
Now, what are some shows that started off super strong and were able to, at least for the most part, sort of maintain that level of quality throughout the duration? Is there anything like that?
Kane was teasing his greatest first episode of an anime ever. I want to hear that.
Oh, yeah. I think it's the greatest pilot episode of any anime that I've ever watched. Now, I don't think the show really carried that quality, so it doesn't meet that perspective. But as I told you guys, how my anime club worked in college was each member of the student council showed the pilot episode of what they thought the club should watch that semester. So you had to make sure you picked one that was fire. Because if you picked one that wasn't very good, even if the show was really good, well, all the other weeaboos didn't give a shit at that point because it didn't catch them right away. So I showed them the pilot episode of Gare Zero because that's the best pilot episode of anime ever. And everybody in the club agreed. Obviously very anecdotal, but I love it. I love how it has cool demon slaying technology in terms of a guy has a motorcycle and the wheels have runes in them, and then he grinds zombie faces with the wheels of his motorcycle. That's badass. I'm gonna spoil this entire episode. You have to if you're gonna talk about it. So you meet all these cool characters that have all these sick demon slaying powers for this like kind of stereotypical government demon hunting / like it's quasi-religious activities thing. But where it really takes the fuck off is near the end of the episode. All the main characters retreat underground under Tokyo to kind of escape this onslaught of demons, where they're all simultaneously murdered by the main character of the show. So you spent 20 minutes seeing all this cool shit, and all those people die instantaneously like it was nothing. It's sick.
I'm all about it.
It's so cool. And of course, it's a schoolgirl with a samurai sword that I think she can rev like a motorcycle.
I feel
Which
like...
is... What were you saying?
I was going to let you finish.
That was it. It was just, it's the shock value that got people to really want to keep watching it.
Yep.
And that's what drew them in, is they spent these 20 minutes getting hyped up for these people that were so good at killing demons, and then one girl in the sewers of Tokyo destroyed them.
Shock value is huge in a first episode, and even though it's overdone at times, I love it every single time it happens. If you can shock me, I'm in. If my jaw drops at any moment in the first episode, I am in for the entire show.
Yeah, and that's what Gare Zero does. That's what it sends your jaw to the floor, because it also does it, I think, with like 30 seconds to go. It isn't like there's 2 minutes and then there's some exposition afterwards. It's like they're all murdered, and then you see the silhouette of the girl with the sword, and then it cuts to credits.
School Live did something
Yep.
like that as well. It's just fucking happy-go-lucky for 20 minutes. It's like, oh, it's a fun slice of life anime. And then a thing happens. I won't say what the thing happens because it's super spoilery. But it's moments like that where you're just like, oh, fuck. And intense genre shifts, which I always love, that really propel it down a different path.
Those are super good too. Now, like I said, I don't think Gare Zero kept that same kind of like hook quality, but I wanted to talk about it just because the pilot is so good to draw you in to want to keep watching. Because why wouldn't you want to watch it? You're like, who's this girl? Is she a bad guy or a good guy? Were they the bad guys? What the fuck just happened? But it doesn't feel in a way that, I don't know even how it did it, but it doesn't feel in a way that you wasted the last 20 minutes, I guess because of the natural hype that this mystery girl must have to kill all these people. It isn't like they all got killed by the zombies, so then it's like, well, of course they could die by zombies if they were overwhelmed. They were safe, and then they just fucking weren't. So, yeah. It's great. It rules.
To carry that on, there's another show where a girl kills a bunch of fucking people in the beginning of it as well.
Is what you were thinking.
I was absolutely going to get there because it's like tied for my favorite pilot, but I feel like Elfen Lied does a perfect example in setting the stage for the rest of the show because it's just ridiculous brutality right off the bat. And that's something I've shown friends that like don't watch anime that like suddenly want to watch anime now because they didn't realize that shit like that exists. So that show, I think, at least the first episode was flawlessly executed, or at least the first half of the first episode, because it gets a lot slower from that point on until like the middle of the series again, and then it picks up. But wonderful beginning to a show, and it's still fucking ridiculous looking back on it.
I agree. That's a great example. I definitely agree.
As soon as you mentioned shock value in pilots, I was like, oh,
we're going to get there.
Elfen Lied.
Yeah, that's I remember I found Elfen Lied because I just looked up like the most brutal anime of all time, and they were like, well, Elfen Lied may not be the most brutal anime, but it has the most brutal like minute and a half.
Yeah, dude. I went from Love Hina to that. And it was just like...
Boy, that's going to be...
That's when I realized that I like anime. Because it's like, yo, you can do this too? And it just... I've been spiraling out of control ever since then.
I remember back in high school, I went from Magic Knight Rayearth to Blue Seed. Talk about tone shift, yo!
Ooh.
I don't know either of those shows.
I feel old.
One of my best friends was... introduced to anime by another friend with Berserk, and then immediately followed up with School Days.
Ooh.
Oh, God.
That's a 1-2 punch.
So he's out forever. There's no chance of him ever liking anime.
DJ, Blue Seed is kind of like a very prototypical, like, late 90s, early 2000s, like, super kind of...
Oh, you know what?
Gore anime.
I think I've seen... Well, not seen, but I think I've, like, watched the first episode of that. I can't remember. It's something...
when I think of Blue Seed, I also think of stuff like Demon City Shinjuku and all those, like, OVA-style things from the
Is it, like, really
90s.
Gritty looking?
Yeah, they're super gritty, and there's tons of, like, gore and maybe some, like, psychological horror as well, because they just tried to really push the envelope. Kind of like when slasher films first started coming out, like in Italy in the 70s. And they're like, how much blood can we really put in here before we start getting censored? Blue Gender is another one.
Oh, you know what? That's what I was thinking of. I confused the
That's
Blue
what I
ones.
always think of when people say Blue Seed.
Yeah, because I did watch the first couple episodes of Blue Gender.
Yeah.
Understandable mistake. Blue Gender also fucks you up.
It was just, the stereotypical, this is on the shelf. Actually, I don't know. That was VHS tape trading, God knows, fan subs who might not have been fan subs. Might have just been a dubbed VHS tape from third generation, ripped off from somebody's Blockbuster. I don't know. Shit went down back in the day, okay?
If you Google Blue Seed, Google will tell you it's a romance, which I feel is a misnomer, to be generous.
There's a chick, there's a dude.
And that's about it.
I don't remember anything else about the show. There are blue seeds, and then there's like...
There's a dude with a hole in his chest.
Dude.
Several holes in his chest.
I don't know, violence. Might be
Lots
boobs,
of that.
I can't remember. It was one of
Lots
those.
of that. But yeah, DJ, I'm so glad you brought up Elfen Lieder. I wouldn't have remembered it on my own.
Oh my god, I
Even
love
though-
that show.
It was one of the first ones I think I ever watched that was considered like an adult anime, like outside of
Yep.
Toonami. Like it was one of the first animes I ever watched that didn't get through Toonami or early Adult Swim stuff. So it was kind of jumping in the deep end.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
the deep end.
It's amazing how many people that was like their first anime. It's so weird to me because, I got into it through the stuff you see on TV.
I always contributed it to, people who got to it through TV as they got older in Toonami, and then they wanted to watch a show that was meant for like more adults, so they just Google it, mature like adult anime or whatever, or more violent anime, whatever they considered to be more adult than what was on Toonami. And of course, most websites will be like, watch Elfenlied. That's super mature.
That's exactly what happened to me. I used to go on 4chan all the time, and it was like
Yeah.
you'd go on 4chan and be like, "What do I watch?" And all of them would say either Elfen Lied or Boku no Pico, and they're two very different shows. And I'm glad that I watched this one.
That was always, I figured, the troll response was people were like, "What's my first anime I should watch?" And it was always like Elfen Lied, unless somebody wanted to be super trolly and we're like, like Bible Black or
Boku
something.
no
but-
Pico.
Yeah, Boku no Pico.
That's you don't get trollier than Shotokan. So
So I was trying to think of what I considered the best first episodes of anime and how the series went from there. There are probably other anime series that have like sharp downward trajectories, but for ones that are good throughout and I think have the best first episodes, I think Attack on Titan is still right up there. I think that episode has everything that you would expect from a pilot of a Western drama to hook people. I feel like the day that episode aired, it was already a worldwide phenomenon.
absolutely, that show was hyped up before it even aired too. So like all eyes were on Attack on Titan, and by golly, did it not disappoint?
Yeah, it
that
delivered.
first episode really delivered. And that series has some relative lulls somewhere in the middle, but it certainly comes back with some of the best episodes of anything. And overall, I think it's a great series. Another one from just last year that I think had a perfect first episode was The Promised Neverland.
Oh yeah, that's good too with the hook at the end.
Yeah, that was a really good series all the way through. I think the only reason that it's not like way up there is because it's a very incomplete story, and I think as the series goes on, it changes a lot, and it might not work that well for people the way the first season did. But the first episode of that was incredibly strong, had a lot of the same qualities as the first episode of Attack on Titan. Tonally, the way it hooks people, just the world-changing twists. I think those are all really effective at selling you on a show at the beginning.
I had one other for shows that had a really like solid pilot, but then I just Googled it and saw that the stuff that I remember is actually from very early in episode 2. So it technically doesn't count, but I just wanted to mention it anyway. And that's Black Lagoon, especially if you watch the English dub, because in the English dub of Black Lagoon, I can't remember his name, but the guy who plays Amuro Ray in the English dub of Gundam,
Yeah, Brad Swale.
Brad Swale plays Rock, and how the second episode goes is Rock does something that's super badass against someone he doesn't like, and he sticks his middle finger up and says, "Get fucked," as loud as possible. And it was at that point that I was sold on Black Lagoon as a show. Because the first episode of Black Lagoon is good, but then when it's like a mini story arc almost between the first 2 episodes to kind of set the tone and the core group of characters. But man, in that second episode, when Rock screams, "Get fucked," and raises his middle finger at the bad guy, I was like, this is a show that is for me. Because it's just an American action movie, just as an anime, and that's basically how it is the whole time. So technically not the pilot, but pretty early in the second episode. So if you were just to let the stream go, you would run into it pretty shortly after the end of the first episode.
I love Black Lagoon so much.
It is super good.
So between these two paradigms, I guess there are various different combinations thereof, because we haven't really talked about any that start off really strong and get a lot worse and end up disappointing. So I guess that's a pretty common thing as well. Maybe not quite as common. But I'm just curious how you think each of these works out. Like, are your favorite series ones that start strong, ones that start weak, ones that improve as they go on, ones that stay the same? Did you think that one could be one of your favorites from the early parts, but it just didn't live up to it, or at least didn't improve like it should be?
I need to be hooked within the first 3 episodes, if not the pilot, so I don't have very many that I have kept on, even if I know that they're apparently good, because my brain is like, well, if it's not good now, how is it going to get good? Even though that, it can. It's just my brain doesn't work like that for some reason. So most of the time, the show either starts strong and stays strong, or it starts strong, gets worse, and I stop watching it. Like, those are kind of they're the two extremes. Like you said, there's shows that just don't start particularly strong or bad and just stay at that middle point. But yeah, for me, the beginning has to be good, or I'm not really into giving them chances past the 3 episodes or what have you.
Now, do you have any that were just good enough to start watching and got dramatically better?
I can get back to you on that. I'm sure there is, and there's one that's on the tip of my tongue that started off okay and got really good. I think it's 91 Days is probably the most recent one, the Mafia one from a few years ago.
That's a good show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't think it started out particularly well, but then as
Same.
you get to know the family structure of the Mafia and kind of the characters' backgrounds and stuff, I was like more and more into it as I knew how the families worked and how the system worked in this universe.
That's like Mafia stuff in general as a genre. It grows.
That's true. It's hard for them to really get you right away because the structure of Mafia crime family is complicated.
Yeah.
With lots of characters that you need to know who answers to who. So I think 91 Days, is my most recent one that started out okay and got drastically better as it went.
I'm looking at my top 10 shows right now, and I don't think any of them had a particularly strong opening episode. Mm-hmm. I guess the closest would have been Higurashi, but that's another just like shock value, shit's going crazy thing. But even then, like, the second season of that is the one that really made it to my top 10, and that didn't have a super strong opening episode to it. So I don't know. Maybe it's not as important as I originally thought for the first episode to be that good. And there are also plenty of occasions where you'll watch the first episode and it's really good, and then the show will just go down as well. And I have tons of those.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that one's the more common.
Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't really talked about many of those, so what's an example of that you could think of?
The biggest example of that for me, and this is one of the shows that's also tied for probably my favorite first episode, it's Guilty Crown. I thought the first episode of that show was so good, and it just feels so big right off the bat, and the animation's beautiful, and you get that ridiculous egoist song, and it's just, this is a world. And then it just crumbles as the series goes on. And I still like it at the end of the day, but like, it is not even close to what I wanted it to be, I'll say.
That show was hyped to holy hell. My God. They promoted the shit out of that show when it was coming up for air.
I mean, it had really great people behind it, and they went on to create the Attack on Titan anime not long after. I think this might happen more often for anime originals that don't necessarily have it all planned out from the beginning. Because I feel like that's most of the situations I've seen that happen with. Darling in the Franxx is a recent example.
Oh my god.
Of a show that gets a lot worse as it goes on, because it kind of seems like they didn't have it all planned out.
The middle was great. And then they just reused the ending of another show they did.
Yeah, so I think that can be a problem with... And I guess it's kind of the opposite of visual novels, because with visual novels, you have the complete story at first, but you don't get to start off that great. So, kind of an inverse relationship there.
These are shows that started strong and got worse, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The only one I really have is Babylon.
Yeah, you guys like hyped that up in the middle, and then by the end of it, you were like, eh.
It had a pretty good opening. It was confusing.
I think the episode right before it went on hiatus was definitely its peak. And then when it came back, oof, and its ending was terrible.
Yeah, it had a strong, solid build up. So the first 3 episodes or so, you almost had to watch them, because those first 3 episodes basically kind of tell you everything you need to know and sort of lay down all the groundwork, and then they could take off. And I gave it more hope. Like I said, I gave it more leeway because I was like, oh, the novel this was based off of, a novel series, it said it was like reading straight up Poison. That was what one of the critics said. I was like, I gotta let this go. It's probably just needs to ruminate for a little. And yeah, that episode right before they went on hiatus, I was like, this shit just got super real. And then after that, it fucking tanked.
Yeah. And going back to the 3-episode thing, I meant to mention this earlier, but I think one of the reasons that works so well is because it kind of is equivalent to a pilot for like a new hour-long drama at this point, because you basically get 20 episodes of content per episode, or 20 minutes of content per episode of an anime. So 3 episodes of that is going to equal to your 1 hour-long pilot. So
yeah,
Babylon's a good example.
Yeah, it had a lot of promise. It really did. Especially if you liked the kind of political thriller it was turning into, and then, man, what a disappointment. But that's kind of the only one that I got, because like I said before, for the most part, if a show doesn't start really strong, I typically don't stick with it unless it was like when I was back in college, and that's just happened to be what the anime club was watching, so I was watching it by going to the meetings. Mm-hmm. If it was up to me, I wouldn't be, but I'm watching it by being there.
Yeah. I guess I have watched a lot of stuff I would have dropped just through my college anime club. And yeah, that's another thing, since there is so much fucking anime all the time, and you can't watch it all, if you have like a life and a job and stuff, you're gonna end up dropping the stuff that starts to taper off. So we probably don't have that many examples of stuff that just keeps getting worse and worse, because we probably dropped it partway through.
Oh, there's plenty of stuff I review that is just...
That's right.
It's Kate like the first episode might be like, oh, this is okay, and then after that, you're just like, why, fuck.
Chaos Child was like that. Chaos Head was like that. All of the science adventure shows I've watched except Steins Gate have been like that.
And Steins Gate is the opposite.
Yeah.
Where it starts off, this could be interesting, and then ends up being one of the greatest things.
Yeah, that show's a trip.
I think it's always interesting to see how what approach the anime takes when they're adapting a manga, which has already been through the trial through fire, right? It's already had its pilot chapters, its standalone, chapters, and it's been reworked, and then it had that. So they're coming in with a thing that has to be adapted to yet another format, but they already know, a manga might be a slow burn. And then they have a show, so you have... Usually the first 3 episodes are completely rearranged from the manga.
I wouldn't say usually.
Sometimes. Well, let's take 2 examples here. One Piece and Vinland Saga. And they both take 2 different approaches with this. The first chapter of the Vinland Saga manga is high impact, high energy battle scene. takes place further along in the storyline than where the story actually starts. So that's where the manga started, in the middle of this crazy battle, single chapter battle, in the, that just kind of showed off like the main character, his mentor / antagonist, and, set that up. Whereas the anime adaptation did the opposite of what an anime usually does, which is it showed the flashback first, which is very different tonally than that original pilot chapter, the first chapter of the manga. Mm-hmm. And in their case, they did it probably because Vinland Saga is a slow burn, and while there is crazy action in it, there are also episodes where they're just trudging through the snow on a very slow chase across a landscape, and there's a lot of heady, like, angst, discussion about religion, discussion about, like, the nature of man. But so they decided to show the flashback first, as opposed to the high octane action scene. Whereas One Piece started off with the childhood, and in the anime they skipped ahead and then went back and told the background after a goofy, more actiony episode where you already saw Luffy as the teenager that he is for most of the series, and then went back and then said, oh, this was how he met his mentor later. But they start you off with Luffy jumping out of a barrel. Like, that's literally how One Piece, the anime, starts, is like Luffy exploding out of a barrel on a marine ship and meeting Kobe. And
yeah, it's true. They do the exact opposite in those two adaptations.
Yeah. And while each show has, like, they touch upon, very different tone and different spots on both shows. They either go super action heavy and they can get very emotional. It was like back in the day they took to, like, no, we need the high, we need to, like, jump in here with this, like, nobody cares about this character, they just met its backstory. So, but then you have Vinland Saga doing just that. It's like, no, here's this kid's backstory. But and since so much focus is on his dad, that it's like,
I think probably part of the reason for that with Vinland Saga, and I think we probably talked about this a little at the time, was because, unlike One Piece, which, shown an action show they're trying to sell to kids, the anime even more than the manga, Vinland Saga is certainly for much older audience, and by that time we had many years of knowing that the manga, after its, brief tenure on a shonen magazine, transitioned to a seinen magazine, and has pretty much always been very much in that seinen tone. So it makes a little more sense that you can start with the deep character drama. You don't need to try to get them hooked with action, because that's not really what it's about. So it kind of makes sense. But it is interesting how they did exactly the opposite of One Piece.
And then there's the third thing, which is Dr. Stone, where that manga started off with Senku and two friends, and nobody gave a shit about the two friends he starts off with. And in the manga, the author quickly dropped the two friends off in a location where he didn't have to deal with them for a very long time. And the anime kept that format perfectly fine, where they leave it all alone, even though it's like, you're not with these people past the first 5 episodes or whatever. They disappear for a very long time.
I mean, that's certainly the most common practice, regardless of how the source material plays out. For, especially a Shonen Jump adaptation, you generally just copy the manga exactly. That's not too surprising.
I know, but it's like one of those things where it's like, they could have, possibly streamlined that or whatever, or they could have used it as the opportunity to just jump to be like, started off with Senku trying to survive by himself, way in the future, and then gone back and dramatically shown, like, what led up to that, and, stuff like that. But no, it started off with him in high school and his green flashlight and dealing with these two friends and all that stuff. I don't know. It's really interesting to see how every show approaches adaptation of that stuff.
Right.
For their audience.
What we were talking about for visual novels, of course, that is already a huge pain to adapt no matter what, because you can't present it in the same format that you originally had it. So I'm curious, like, for any of those adaptations that you've seen, DJ would probably be able to speak to this the most. Do you think that they could have hooked the audience better from the beginning? Do you think they could have rearranged things to make it more gripping?
Say the beginning of that again. I caught the end of it, but I zoned out, admittedly, for the first part.
Your voice is powerful there. Yeah, also that. Anyway, so for like visual novel adaptations, they're generally start off pretty slow. They can be a hard sell for people. Do you think there are some examples where they could have rearranged some of the content or changed things to help hook people more in the beginning?
In a visual novel adaptation, it's tough. I feel like the best course of action, if you're going to do something like that, is to do that thing where you'll show something happening in the future and then cut to the beginning. That's probably the only way I can imagine getting a visual novel adaptation to come across stronger, unless it's something super stylized, like F. F, despite not having in a pilot episode with a lot of content, it looks so much different from everything else that it sort of captures people and pulls them in that way. But it's still not, it's not the normal way of doing things. If you're just going to start telling the visual novel story right off the bat, you're not going to grab anyone, at least from all of the ones that I've seen. I can't think of any example of a visual novel that starts off super strong, except for Higurashi, but that's not a normal visual novel because it's just straight up murder mystery. You need to show something big. You can't just start telling the story.
Yeah, it makes sense. Now, if people run into the situation of trying to get other people to watch some of their favorites, but running into problems with it not working for them at the beginning. I know One Piece is another great example of that for a lot of people. But are there any examples of that you guys have run into, and how have you gotten them past that hump at the beginning?
Magia record. I showed that to one of my friends who liked Madoka, and he didn't like it either. So it's not an uncommon opinion to not like that show. I'm sure there are plenty. I'm sort of scrolling through everything right now. Have you gotten anyone into Clannad? Yes, I've gotten my brother into Clannad, and he's like straight up Jersey Shore. And that's, he is, you'd look at him and be like, you will never watch Clannad, but he watched Clannad and he cried as much as I did. And so I think the opening to that show has to be at least good on some level, because he didn't have any complaints with it when he started. And it's like, there's just something about Clannad that I feel like can reel people in. I don't know what it is. It feels magical to me. All of it's magical. But yeah, there are plenty of shows that I try to get people into and have a hard time with because of the hump in the beginning. Flowers of Evil, that's another one where it's just nobody liked that show for the first fucking month it was out. And when you're like, yo, I've got this show it'll make you really uncomfortable and it's super good, I promise. And the first thing they see is the most horribly rotoscoped characters of all time and a very ugly looking show. It's like they don't want to watch it. So it's tough. It's convincing people to watch things when the opening isn't strong is probably the worst position to be in as someone getting someone into anime. And that's why I just say Elfen Lied. The end.
It's cyclical.
Yeah, it's just fucking pick that one. Can't go wrong.
My go-to strategy, and I can't really attest to how often it's worked. It works with my brother, because he's probably the only other person that really watches a lot of anime that I talk to outside of you guys. I have another acquaintance, but we don't really talk all that often in the first place. And I know what kind of anime he likes, so trying to get anything out of that zone is just impossible. But What I do with my brother is, if I know it's not going to be very good in the beginning, is I'll actually watch it with him, so that he can talk about it afterwards. And also, I can apply subtle social pressure to keep watching.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought you were just gonna be like, so I can hold him hostage so that he'll watch the damn thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's both. I find it's harder to want to keep going even when someone tells you something is good after 3 episodes. If you can't like talk about it afterwards in any way, like the first 2 episodes or 3 or what have you, I've always found it's harder to have the motivation if it's just, I'm doing this because the internet told me. But if I'm right there and after the end of the episode he can ask me about something, or either anything like that, it makes it easier. It's either that or just be straight up and be like, it's not going to be very good, and I don't begrudge you if you say Wikipedia the first episode and then just go into the second one, and then I don't even mind if you ask me questions that the first episode covered later, as long as you're still watching the show so we can talk about it in general. I'm pretty lenient about stuff like that, especially if it's someone I know that doesn't watch a lot of anime anyway. It's kind of like when you tell people to watch The Witcher. It's like those first 3 episodes are kind of rough.
You think?
Until what?
You think so?
Yeah, I think the first 3 episodes of The Witcher are kind of confusing for people, especially people who aren't aware of The Witcher. Like, they don't know the characters and know the map and the lore and stuff.
Yeah.
I think until you figure out what exactly is happening, which happens around, I think, the beginning of the 4th episode, it could be pretty like mediocre.
The episodes with Yennefer,
outside of the good choreography.
Yennefer's storyline, I feel like, kind of isn't as impressive as the pilot, which is the whole Geralt Renfrey thing. But yeah, when you factor in the 2nd and 3rd episode, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
people don't do well with non-linear storytelling in general.
Yeah, so at that point, it's just either I watch it with them, or if I care that much that they just experience the show, I don't even care if it's like skip the pilot and read the synopsis later. Like if you need to, because then you can get all the information you really need in like 30 seconds, and then you can just jump right into the better shit.
I'm sure this doesn't surprise you at all, but I do not approve of that method. Unless it's like what I was saying about the first couple episodes of Gintama, where like they were literally just a special, basically aired for fans of the manga, and then the actual series starts in episode 3. Other than very specific situations like that, yeah, if you're just gonna skip an episode, then I would just say don't bother.
Yeah, skipping a random episode, but like if the pilot is really bad, I'm not going to force, especially if I know that if I just told them to watch the show and they'll watch the first episode and drop it, so then they don't get the ability to appreciate the show as it develops, as long as it's in short order. Like, I'm not going to tell someone to read the Wikipedia for the first 6 episodes or anything, but if it's just the pilot, especially if it doesn't really have a lot of like exposition or story based, and that more unfolds in the next couple, then I don't really mind for the most part. Yeah, it's not the best way to do it, but if it gets you to experience it and enjoy it and give me someone else to talk to about it, then yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to agree on that, but I would say as long as you can, explain to someone that the first episode is relatively weak and just give it a couple. I feel like if someone is not willing to invest that, then I don't know. I guess it's not worth it.
I feel like the only shows I've ever been able to get anybody to watch have been live action American television shows. I gave up trying to recommend anime to people a long ass time ago.
Yeah,
Those
that's
are
why
much
I'm also
easier
extra
sells, yeah.
lenient. It's because I know how hard it is to get people who don't like anime to watch it just in general.
Yeah, like we've been basically going down like the IMDb top TV shows for the past few months, and obviously those are really great shows. One of them maybe doesn't end that well, but in general, you definitely get the sense that like this first episode had to prove to the people, to the producers, that the show was going to be worth it, and you can see all the makings of it in that first episode. Whereas now transitioning to, especially an anime like Clannad, where the first episode is very unassuming, you'd never expect that it turns into this crazy emotional ride. It maybe I haven't actually like asked her opinion. Maybe it's just my perspective, but sitting there watching it with her, I feel like, oh man, is she let down by this? Is this like really tough to get through? So hopefully it's not the case, but I definitely see that being a much easier sell for live action Western shows.
Yeah, and yeah, that's basically the gist. I can't remember the last time I've had to do that, to be fair, because now that I know what I like, and I know what I like, and I know what Caleb, my brother, likes, it's much easier for me to be like, just watch this, and he'll just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I haven't steered him wrong in a very long time. I do that with my wife for movies too. I've gotten good enough at finding movies that I think she'll like, that she isn't as skeptical of my choices to watch with her anymore as she used to be. It used to be really hard to get her to watch a movie.
I think I can pretty much get Caitlin to watch whatever now, because she kind of got to pick what we watched for a long time. But I certainly show her a lot of movies because they're great, even though I know she will not like them. So like Godfather Part 1 and 2, Seven Samurai, some of the greatest films of all time that she hates. I kind of knew that they wouldn't work that well for her, but I just had to try.
Yeah, I commend you for that effort. For sure. I commend you for that effort. I guess I just get nervous that if I show Emily too many movies in a row that she doesn't like, she's just going to be like back to square one, where she sees all the movies that I pick out as being not good or trash. So I get super nervous about stuff like that sometimes, because I want her to experience all these like anime and TV shows and movies, because she didn't have that opportunity when she was younger. But
Right.
I have to pick and choose wisely, even though she's like stuff that I wouldn't have ever expected her to like, and I was just watching for me. Like, I would have never expected her to like The Book of Eli, but she was like, that movie rules. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, this is so far out of your wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's why it's always worth trying if you think that something is just great. I still try to get people to watch those, even if it doesn't seem like their show. Like, in college, when I was introducing a lot of friends to my favorite anime, there were certainly some of them where I would start them with a few Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhoods and the like before I tried to get them to dip their toes into Clannad, because I had to prove to them that they could love anime before they go way out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, there is one show though that the pilot is not very good, that I would never do the Wikipedia reading for, and that is Fate Zero, because there's so much exposition in that pilot that it would be impossible to do that and enjoy it, because that's one that I don't the series is one of my favorites, but I think the pilot is not super great because they're extended scenes of dudes walking in circles talking to each other.
That pilot very much caters to people who are already familiar with the universe.
It's really shitty for people who aren't familiar with the property, the IP in any way, like how I came into it. I came into Fate Zero.
It's probably so confusing.
Yeah. It is. It's very confusing. It's a, you know what? It's a really bad pilot episode. It sucks.
I love it.
It's a shitty pilot episode if you're just coming into it as an anime, which is how I did and how the friend who introduced me to the show did. He introduced it to me as, this is really good, and the animation is super great, and the premise is really cool. He said, but the pilot episode sucks balls. And it does. It just does, because it's tons of exposition, nothing happens. Like, and you're confused by all of the exposition, because it's conversations. It's not played out for you in any way. It's just two dudes talking to each other about this Grail War and about all the families and about the mages and about how it works and everything. But it's not even compelling conversation. It's just two dudes talking.
Yeah, that's true. They talk for a very long period of time.
Yeah, so it sucks. But the show is fucking awesome. Like, it's one of my favorites. It's just you got to get through that hour or hour and a half. It feels like an eternity. But
it's like 45 minutes without the commercials.
So, yeah, that's one that I wouldn't recommend, though, watching the Wikipedia, because if you don't watch the pilot, well, then they never expound on any of it ever again. They just assume you know it at that point. Yeah. So you have to be aware of it. So reading it, I feel like you wouldn't really be able to be involved as much. So that's some pain that I have to be like, you gotta flagellate yourself a little.
I guess I never thought of it as like that off-putting. Like, I was introduced to Fate through the Fate Zero anime as well, and yeah, it's definitely the worst episode of the series. And it's kind of in that, like, you know, maybe not quite good enough to keep watching depending on the person territory, but I don't know, it never really put me off at the time, and I didn't think of it as so drastically different in quality that I had to, you know, warn people about it when introducing them to the series. I don't know, but I know you have very strong opinions about it.
Yeah, it's still I fucking wish they would release an affordable Blu-ray copy of it. It'll always be like a holy grail, for me to own, because I just can't swallow the cost of how much those Blu-rays are. Every time I go to a con, I pick up the boxes and just ogle them and think about owning them, but then I never buy them.
One thing that I didn't include in the news, slight tangent off of this, that is probably worth bringing up, is that for Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the manga
just
ended.
I knew there was one news thing I wanted to say and forgot about. That was it.
Yeah, so the fact that it ended, or about its home video release?
The fact that it ended.
Oh, yeah. So the manga just ended. But anyway, the home video releases of the anime, thanks to this new Sony partnership between Funimation and Aniplex that's been growing over the past few years, Funimation will be releasing affordable standard edition Blu-rays for that series alongside Aniplex's super exorbitant premium editions.
I wonder which one will sell more.
Probably the standard editions, but the limited editions will make more money. So I'm really happy that's happening, because obviously I was always going to spend however much they asked for the premium editions, but a series like that Aniplex has a lot of should definitely be available to the widest possible audience, and I really hope they go back and do the same for some of their old titles.
I hope this means Baccano gets back in print.
Yeah,
that's the dream.
Yeah.
That's the fucking dream.
Yeah, but anyway, I guess I maybe spend more time trying to recommend anime to other people than a lot, because I guess, I don't know, it's like the height of my enjoyment of anime is sharing it with other people and getting to discuss my favorites with other people and seeing how they react to them and seeing them invest in them. So that is something that, especially since the beginning of college, I have made, like, you know, my mission in life. So maybe it affects me more than other people. Now, Kane, I'm curious, am I approaching the level that my recommendations start to hold more water based on the solid recommendations so far?
Everything but Clanad. I'm never going to watch that.
You won't even pronounce it correctly. That's how much you hate it.
I'm going to disrespect you in as many ways as possible. No, I trust your recommendations for the most part, just other than that one. That's for just, I can't get over the art style, just like how DJ can't watch anything before digital anime.
Right.
I wouldn't say anything, just most things.
You make it sound like anything.
I do make it sound that way.
But yeah, I mean, you always have pretty solid recommendations, at least in my experience. So Yeah, I would give most of those things a shot. I mean, you also have much more experience watching things than me, so that also helps. I was gonna say one other thing. It's just something completely irrelevant about disc-based anime. So we can just skip over that.
Yeah, I'm still trying to work that magic on DJ to get on the Brotherhood train, but no luck so far.
My girlfriend almost got me to watch it the other day because I was fucking in her room and like we were trying to figure out what to watch, and she stopped on that, and she was like, "Hey," and I was like, "Kestra would be really happy."
I'm gonna go message Becca right now. I've literally never talked to her in a Ghost Recon conversation.
That was the first thing I said when she suggested that. Kestra would just be happy.
I can second Kestrel's recommendation. I have a hard time watching stuff that's that hyped, especially if many years have gone by and I've been subjected to the hype. But FMAB is one of the few things I think that I've watched after knowing how hyped it was and seeing how hyped it was and all that has lived up to that level. Because there have been plenty of things that people have wanted me to watch, and the media and social media and stuff like that has super hyped, and I'm just like, this wasn't that good. But FMAB definitely lives up to it for sure.
Nice. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, that's a problem I have a lot with, trying to let people know how much series is really great and they should really check it out. But then, I end up hyping it too much. And I feel like in most cases, people don't get disappointed, but I certainly run that risk.
Yeah, I try to tone it down now for anything that I'm recommending to anybody. Yeah, because I've done the same thing, and it hurts me when they're like, it was okay. So then I try to just be like, I think you'll like it. And if they ask more about it, then I'll explain to them why I think that way. But I'll just be like, I think you'll like it. It's been very well received. And then that's it.
Yeah, I struggle with that not being enough and feeling like I really need to push it. And,
I fucking freak out.
Yeah, it's how I do.
Go full.
Yo, this shit'll change your life. I fucking swear.
I mean, yeah, pretty much. That's what I told a lot of people about Clannad After Story in college, and they watched it, and it worked for the most part.
Exactly. It changed my life.
Yeah. But yeah, obviously it doesn't always work. I can tell DJ to watch Brotherhood every week for years, and still never works out, so...
It'll happen one day. I think I'm subconsciously afraid that I will like it a lot and that it will then go on to consume a lot of time that I would otherwise use on other things.
It's not that long.
Yeah, it's only 64 episodes.
Only 64.
That's a legitimate fear, though.
Yeah, you can't realize. I've only watched 2 shows or 3 shows now that have gone over that mark.
I know. Well, that's why I tried to get everyone on the weekly rewatch thing.
Yeah.
Because then you don't have to invest any extra time. It's just one more show.
Isn't that a weird paradox, DJ? I experienced the same thing. It is for real. That whole, you're almost afraid to like something too much because it'll take too much of your time.
Yep.
Even though looking at it logically, you're like, but I really like it, so it's a good use of my time. But then your brain's like, but there's so many other things that you may also like that you're missing out on.
What if you
it's like FOMO.
Be productive or something?
Well, for me, it's not be productive at all.
Oh,
it's more like there's other things I could be doing that are just
to drink beer.
Yeah, or I could watch this. Sometimes it gets so FOMO for me. It's like, well, I could watch this show that's critically acclaimed and everyone really loves it, and I've enjoyed it so far. Or I could watch this show that it might be okay, but it's only 13 episodes.
Yeah, I'm with you there. That's how I am. I prioritize video games a lot lower because it's just such a time investment. Yeah. But then when I actually invest the time and play one, I'm like, this is great. And then I'm like, shit, I want to play this more now. I want to do a bunch of extra stuff, but I need to just limit myself to the main story so that I can get back to other stuff.
We don't have enough time. We're all dying really quickly.
That's a take right there.
It's the truth.
Yeah,
Indeed.
and I guess DJ is kind of productive with his time because he creates content.
Work 80
Well,
hours a
porn.
week now.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ, man. Speaking of creating stuff, and the show is hitting 2 hours, and other things to do and places to go.
This is a
People to
real
see.
stretch. Whatever you're
Yeah,
trying
it's
to
a
do
good
is a
segue,
stretch.
Kate.
You
You might as well just be like recommendations. And then that'll be
Speaking of
Recommendations.
words.
recommendations.
Speaking of
for-
words, recommendations.
Speaking of
Points
recommendations,
for effort, but not many.
I have 3. I'm not going to push my game again because I already did that earlier. I've got 2 pre-orders and 1 thing that's out. I'll start with the pre-orders. Pre-orders are now open for O Maidens in Your Savage Season, one of my favorite shows from last year. I think it's absolutely adorable. If you like Mario Kata, definitely check that out. I've got the pre-order for Rascal Does Not Dream of a Dreaming Girl. Another great movie. That was top 5 of the year for me as well. If you liked Rascal Does Not fucking Bunny Girl Senpai, whatever it was, title too long to remember.
Yeah, you murdered. You murdered the name
Rascal
of that
Doesn't
twice.
Bunny Girls. If
I think he does like fucking Bunny Girl Senpai.
yeah, that is what he likes the most. If you liked Bunny Girl Senpai and want to have that series but in a movie form that'll probably make you cry, get Rascal Does Not Dream of Dreaming Girl. It's beautiful.
That was
Agreed.
Yeah, I know how to sell shit. And the last thing will be After the Rain, which is now out on Blu-ray. It is a surprisingly wholesome show about a high school girl who falls in love with her boss at work. It's not... It's a romance show, but it's not really romantic because they're just worlds apart. So it's more of a tale of codependency and finding your place in the world. So check that out. It's good. And it's After the Rain once again. Those are my recommendations.
I will say the Arya, the Origination Blu-ray that comes with the OVAs that came before and after will be out for general release in next couple weeks. So you'll be able to buy all of Arya on Blu-ray in English, without having contributed to the Kickstarter within the next few weeks. So check that out. Also, if you do not have the Clannad visual novel yet, it is being released for the Switch, and pre-orders for that are up for the limited edition, which includes a lot of the stuff that came with the Kickstarter exclusive for PC back 5 years ago. And that is only available for a short window for pre-order for the collector's edition for the next week or two from, I think, Limited Run Games is the site. So get on that if you're interested in the collector's edition. If you just want the regular edition, I think it'll be on download and physical standard edition for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, Limited Run does a lot of cool shit. They take a lot of games that would never have a physical release and give them one, which is really cool. They've done it a lot for like indie games on the PlayStation. And some of them have gotten pretty collectible for people who want like a full PlayStation 4 collection of all the physical releases, like video game collectors. So it's pretty dope. It also seems like the Switch is the new PS Vita when it comes to like visual novels.
100%.
Yep.
Totally.
They're a lot
It's
more
horrible.
lax when it comes to censorship as well, which is awesome because fucking Sony
That's
is
weird,
the
considering-
worst at censoring
Yeah,
things.
I would not expect Nintendo
Me
to be more
neither.
lax about that than Sony.
Maybe they're just naive.
Just hoping no one
they
notices.
might just be. They
Yeah,
might just
they're-
be looking the other way and being like, "Yeah, okay, whatever."
Whatever gives us money.
When is
so-
Limited Run Games gonna have a short window to pre-order the physical collector's edition of Lessons in Love for the Nintendo Switch?
I fucking wish, man. That'd be the dream. Put my game on Switch. Is that copyright infringement? Yeah, kinda. To a certain extent.
Whatever. Who cares?
Yeah, but like think
Do what
of
you
the
want.
exposure.
Ugh, what a loaded word. I have a few recommendations actually looking at this list because it's the 20th. So it might be out by the time that this episode airs. I'm not sure. but Run with the Wind Complete Collection comes out on the 26th. So definitely buy that shit, because that's an amazing sports-based anime. Lots of, character study, bonding time with handsome boys who also happen to do some long-distance running on the side. So that's good. That's from Sentai, so I think it's gonna be like $60 or something like that. Unless you buy the fucking cool-ass limited edition that has a like lithograph bookmark that if you move it, it shows them running, which is like super scholastic book fair
Hell
middle
yeah.
school shit.
Yeah,
But I think it's cool as hell.
that's kind of great,
There's
though.
also in June the Tokyo Godfathers Blu-ray is coming out from Shout Factory and G Kids. So G Kids Shout Factory. So that's going to be really good. I watched the new dub in theaters when it was in theaters. What was it, in February maybe?
I think it was early March, right before the whole lockdown.
It may have been, yeah, a few months ago, and it's really good. The new dub is really good. So that's definitely worth buying as well. I don't know if it's been rescanned or anything. I can't remember that. Or if it's just a new dub, and that'll be the difference between this and any other previous like release, digital or otherwise. Because I know you can still technically watch it on Amazon if you buy it, but it's like the old subs.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if they redid the subs. I'm imagining, yeah.
Yeah, I think they redid all of that. New scan. I can't remember if this is one of the movies where they did a 4K scan, but in general, it's the first time it's ever been on Blu-ray. So
yeah, I know in theaters it looked really great.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. Now it may have already looked great. Like 2001: Space Odyssey looks like it was made yesterday, even though it's from 1968. But either way, that's definitely worth a purchase, and that you should be able to get that for like $20, which is a steal. And then my third recommendation is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 HD remake.
Hell yeah.
Is that out? What's the
we
release
forgot
date
to
on
spend an
that?
hour talking about that.
I was gonna bring it up, but
know.
we got right into the topic like we normally should do, so we couldn't have a chance to get sidetracked. But definitely buy that shit,
When does that
even
come
though
out?
it's missing the Anthrax Public Enemy song.
Yeah,
Bring the
it's
Noise.
missing a few songs.
Unfortunately, it's missing a few songs, including that one. But that game should be fucking rad. I
September
can't
4th.
wait.
It's that soon? Oh my god, I'm so excited. I'm gonna
Yeah, I
relive the
can't
glory
wait.
days. I'm going back to school.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the only games that I'll legitimately try to like 100%, because that's what I did when I was younger too. I wanted to get all the cassettes. I wanted to spell skate on every level. I wanted to get all the medals. I'll probably do that again just for the nostalgia
Oh
value.
man, so excited. I hope I can play as Jamie
Also,
Thomas
they
again.
aged this. They aged the skaters, which is really interesting.
Did they?
Yeah, they aged them all, so they rescan
Awesome.
them into the game and then age them up. So Tony Hawk looks like a 50-year-old man. Chad Muska's in his 40s. Bucky Lasek, I think, is also in his 40s and looks pretty haggard.
Yeah, he's
Surprising.
getting up there.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting choice that you don't see very often.
I remember seeing a video from several years ago where Tony Hawk proceeded to attempt to do like his signature trick.
The
And
900,
he was
baby.
all like, yeah, and he was all like, and he was like, it looked painful, and by the time he finally actually pulled it off, he's like, great, I'm done, I never have to do this again.
That's it.
Yep.
That was the first biography I read.
The Tony
it's,
Hawk one?
It's amazing.
Kestrel, you got
Okay,
cut off.
I was wondering if it was just me. Kestrel disappeared for me too.
Oh, I was stopping because I was waiting for you to answer.
Oh, good.
I
Okay,
just
we're all
didn't
just
hear
quiet, suddenly quiet because we're all waiting for
each other
somebody to
to
say
talk,
something.
yeah.
Good us.
Whew.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how those games are just so ubiquitous. No matter what you're into, everyone played and loved those games in the early 2000s.
Yeah, it got a lot of people into skateboarding that normally wouldn't be into skateboarding.
That game helped me find my love for music.
Yeah, they're great games.
All right, Kestrel, where can you find us?
Oh, also, speaking of Tony Hawk, if you get the limited edition, it comes with a full-size birdhouse skateboard deck, Anyway, you can
Probably,
find us.
probably don't want you to use it. It's probably a cheap thing. Probably not good.
It's probably just the deck. It's whatever. Hanging on your wall.
Yeah, I don't know. You can find us wherever you find podcasts. Subscribe, rate, and review. We are on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud. You can find our Alexa skill. You can find us on fandompost.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Fandom Post Radio. Like our stuff, share it, get people into it, and get in contact with us. And you can also do that via email, fandompostradio@gmail.com. That's everything, and you can find me on Twitter at FullMetalKyoma.
You can find me on Twitter at DJ No Style.
You can find me on Twitter at SonicBug.
And I am right here. Exclusive.
Man,
I am
these
the
exclusive rights expire.
I am the pre-order bonus.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Anybody got any final words?
Yeah, goodbye.
Huh, boom.
Wow.
Play Lessons
in Love. The new update comes out for patrons in 11 days and like 4 hours or something like that.
Oh, good lord.
The new collector's edition comes with a skate deck.
That's right.
It comes with the old, what were they called, like fingerboards?
Yo, those were the shit.
Hey,
oh, those were the shit.
This collector's edition, if you order from GameStop, you get the real skate deck and the fingerboard.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah,
Oh, it's $100 though. Woo.
Yeah, whatever, man. All right.
Bye.
See ya.
All right, adios.